Boavista FC are a Portuguese club based in the city of Porto. Outside the big three of Porto, Sporting and Benfica, they are the most decorated Portuguese club, and they became one of only two clubs outside the big three to have won the Portuguese Championship when they won the title in the 2000-2001 season. The 2002-2003 season saw the club reach the semi-final of the Europa League, which they unfortunately lost to Scottish side Celtic. In 2008, the club was sentenced to relegation for their part in a match-fixing scandal and did not return to the top division until the 2014-15 season. Since then, the club has stayed in the top flight but has struggled to hit the heights of the early 2000s. In today's video, I'm taking over Boavista for 5 seasons in FM24 to see if I can challenge the big three in Portugal and bring some success back to the checkered ones. In season 1, I was expected to record a top half finish in the league and be competitive in the Portuguese Cup, but with very little staff and no money in the transfer budget and the club already spending over their wage budget, I would have my work cut out. Having my work cut out was a big understatement, as the club was under an embargo, meaning I couldn't sign any new players until the 31st of December this year. This wasn't completely the end of the world, as we did have some good talent in the squad, so I was happy to work with what I had for this first season. I could, however, improve the backroom staff, so set about doing that, and we now sat amongst the best in the league. So with the backroom staff sorted out and me settling on a 4-2-4 gegenpress style tactic, I was now ready to simulate season number 1. Before a ball was kicked in season number 1, we were predicted to finish in 7th place by the bookies, and we ended up overachieving in season number 1 as we finished 5th in the table come the end of the season, qualifying for next season's Europa Conference League. We lost 11 games throughout the season, drawing 6 and winning 17, finishing on a very respectable 57 points. But it was disappointment in the Taça de Portugal, as we were knocked out in just the 4th round by 2nd division side Paços de Ferreira. However, we fared much better in the Allianz Cup as we topped a group in the 3rd phase, which included Benfica. The semi-final saw us drawn against Sporting, but against all odds we beat them 2-0 to head into the final, where we faced city rivals Porto, and despite having 16 shots to their 8, we lost the game 3-0. So despite the embargo against us and having no money to spend, it had been a very good first season from this squad, with strikers DeSantis and Bozinac hitting 16 and 17 goals each, and winger Lourenço setting up 10 of our goals across the season. Next season we would be battling on the domestic front, but also in the Europa Conference League, and the board had given me £241,000 to spend for season number 2. In season number 2, the board were expecting me to be competitive in the Europa Conference League and record a top half finish in the league. I thought this was more than achievable, but I needed to send out my scouts to bring players into the club. 3 players left the club after their contracts ran down, with Watai, Sasso and Gasking all heading out on free deals. Young midfielder Burner left for 2nd division side Mafra in a £40,000 deal, and 5 players went out on loan until the end of the season, with Silva, Santos, Ribeiro, Machado and Almeida all heading out to gain experience. 8 players joined the club this summer, with goalkeeper Jose Contreras joining on a free deal. 29-year-old Japanese central defender Namichi Ueda also joined on a free transfer. Peruvian Renzo Garces also joined the club and could play anywhere from central defence to midfield. Wing-backs Fernando Bassano and Gilmar Laura came into the club and were joined by Gabriel Perez, who joined from Benfica on a free transfer after his contract ran down, and Brazilian striker Raniel, who also joined on a free transfer. My summer business was wrapped up as youngster Andreas Kapsis, who was wanted by clubs such as Juventus, joined the club and was definitely one for the future. So my summer business was done, and I was sticking with the same tactic that had done us so well in season 1 and was now ready to simulate season number 2. Season number 2 went the same way as season number 1 as we finished our league campaign in 5th place on 57 points, once again qualifying for next season's Europa Conference League. But it was disappointment in the Allianz Cup as we were knocked out in the second phase by Chavez on penalties. However, we fared much better in the Taça de Portugal this season as we got through the third round beating Real 3-1. This saw us head into the 5th round where we beat AVS by a comfortable 3-1 scoreline. The 6th round saw us given a much trickier tie, but we got through it, beating Porto in extra time 3-2. This saw us come up against Chavez in the semi-final, who had knocked us out of the Allianz Cup, but we comfortably beat them over the 2 legs 4-1 to see us head into the Taça de Portugal final, where we faced Portuguese champions Benfica, and despite a great effort from the lads, we were sunk by an Angel Di Maria winner and lost the final 2-1. But how did my Boavista side fare in Europe? Well, we won both qualifying games and made it into the league phase, but it was pretty underwhelming as we lost 3 games, drew 1 and won just 2 of our 6 games, meaning we went into a knockout playoff round where we faced Spanish La Liga side Las Palmas, and after a 2-1 home win we were confident going into the second leg. But our confidence was short-lived as we were battered 4-1 by the Spanish side, sending us crashing out of Europe. Despite the disappointment of Europe, it had been a good season from the squad as we finished 5th in the league and got to a domestic cup final, helped by the fact that 4 players got into double figures, with striker Bozinic hitting 25 goals across the season. However, a number of players' contracts were due to run out, and the board had given me just $254,000 to spend for season number 3, and we were already well over our wage budget, so I would have to see what free transfers were available as we headed into season number 3. The sale of Gabriel Perez to Estrella for $5 million after he joined last season on a free transfer gave me the opportunity to tie up contracts and gave me some wiggle room in the summer window. Striker Diego Rodriguez also left the club for Rio Ave on a free transfer, and I got straight into bringing players in as Brazilian left winger Bruno Rodriguez joined the club on a free transfer. Ghanaian right winger Kamal Sowa was next in through the door after his contract ran down at Club Bruges, and I plugged some gaps in the squad, signing right back Adam Bakune and striker Marco Lazetic, who both joined on loan from AC Milan until the end of the season. And I rounded off my summer business for season number 3 as I signed young Serbian centre-back Vukicevic from Red Star on loan until the end of the season. So with all my summer business done and my squad ready to go, it was time to simulate season number 3. Well, season number 3 got off to a great start as we won our first trophy of this rebuild, winning the Super Cup against Benfica 3-2 in the final. But it was a similar story in the league as we once again finished in 5th place, this time on 60 points, but still a massive 22 points off second place Benfica. I thought we would have a real good go at the domestic cup competitions this season, but it didn't turn out that way as we were knocked out of the Allianz Cup in the third round, finishing second in the league phase to Sporting, and things got even worse in the Taça de Portugal as we were beaten in the third round by lower league side Fafe. But could we salvage season number 3 by having a good campaign in the Europa Conference League? While a penalty shootout win over Austria Vienna in the third qualifying round, and a 6-3 win over Swiss side Luzern in the fourth qualifying round meant that we made it into the league phase, where a draw with Rosenborg and wins over Genk, Ross County, Dynamo Tbilisi, Sutjeska Nikšić and Sheriff Tiraspol meant that we finished second in the league phase on 16 points and went straight into the last 16 with no knockout playoff round needed. Here we were drawn against Turkish side Adana Demirspor, and a crazy couple of ties saw us go through to the quarter-finals with an 8-6 aggregate win, where we faced Greek side AEK Athens, and after a 1-0 defeat in Greece, we had it all to do in the home tie. My Boavista side stepped up to the plate in the second leg, winning 4-2, sending us into the Europa Conference League semi-final, where we would face English Premier League side Chelsea, and in the first tie at Stamford Bridge, we were under the cosh for much of the game, but managed to come away with just a 1-0 defeat. In the second leg back in Portugal, I couldn't fault my players' efforts as we pushed Chelsea all the way, but late goals from Nkunku and Caicedo made sure that the London side went through to the final, defeating us 5-3 on aggregate. Overall, it had been a decent season by my squad, with the disappointments of the domestic cups balanced out by the Super Cup win, the decent league position and the Europa Conference League campaign. 4 players had got into double figures over the season, with Soa hitting 12, Tavares hitting 18, on loan Lazetic hitting 18, and Bozanic once again finishing top scorer, hitting 25 goals across the season. But I had just 2 more seasons of this Boavista rebuild left, and I wanted silverware next season. To achieve this, the board had given me just £280,000 to spend, with £201,000 in the wage budget for season number 4. The transfer business for season 4 kicked off as I sold Makuta to Al Wada in Saudi Arabia for $10.75 million, and he was joined out of the club by Machado, Arias and Bruno Lourenco, who all went out on loan until the end of the season. My incoming business started as I brought in centre-back Edwin Kurtulus on a free transfer, and he was joined by midfielder Charlie Webster, who joined from Chelsea on a free transfer, and striker Lazetic, who we had in on loan last season, who joined from AC Milan after his contract ran down. Makuta's replacement cost me $4.1 million from AC Milan as I brought in Spanish midfielder Ivan Morante, and he was joined in midfield by Filip Souček, who joined for $130,000 from Braga. My summer spending didn't end there as I brought in 30-year-old Peruvian striker Alex Valera for $325,000, and I topped up the squad, bringing winger Lucas Roman and centre-back Gerald Quansah in on loan from Barcelona and Liverpool until the end of the season. So with my summer transfer business done, my squad and starting 11 looking much better and a different tactic being deployed, I was now ready to simulate season number 4 and cross my fingers we could win some silverware this season. Season number 4 was the season we finally split the big 3 of Portugal as we finished in 3rd place in the league, losing 4 games, drawing 7, winning 23, finishing the season on 76 points, 9 points clear of 4th place Sporting, and for the 5th season we would be competing in the Champions League. But it was disappointment in the Allianz Cup as we were knocked out in the 3rd phase, finishing 2nd to Benfica. However, we did get revenge on the Lisbon club as we knocked them out of the 4th round of the Taça de Portugal, winning 1-0 away from home. This saw us go into the 5th round where we dispatched Gil Vicente with a 2-0 home win. The 6th round was a comfortable 5-1 home win against 2nd Division Firenze to send us into the semi-final, where we faced city rivals Porto, and after a 3-1 home win we had 1 foot in the Taça de Portugal final. We thought it was going to be a tough tie away from home in the second leg, but it didn't prove to be the case as we beat our rivals 4-3 to head into the Taça de Portugal final, where my players had the game of their lives as we dispatched Sporting 2-0 to win my first major trophy of this 5-year rebuild. So season number 4 had been a great success as we split the big 3 in the league and lifted the Taça de Portugal, but how did we get on in the Europa Conference League? While a 4-3 aggregate win over Swedish side BK Häcken in the 3rd qualifying round sent us into the 4th qualifying round, where we faced Kairat from Kazakhstan, and after an 8-5 aggregate win we were once again heading into the league phase of the Europa Conference League, and we made light work of the league phase, drawing 2 and winning 4 of our 6 games, sending us into the last 16, where we faced Danish side Brøndby, and after a 3-1 aggregate win, we were heading into the quarter-final. But the quarter-final proved to be a bridge too far as we came up against French side Nice, and after a 7-3 defeat to the eventual winners of the competition, we were heading out of the Europa Conference League. It had been our best season to date, with 5 players hitting double figures, with the standout performers lone man Lucas Roman, who hit 23 goals and 21 assists across the season, and striker Martin Tavares, who hit 28 goals throughout the season. But we would be losing Quanta and Roman, who were only on loan, and with the Champions League to compete with as well as the domestic competitions, I was in a position where I would have to sell to buy some players to strengthen the squad. 3 players left the club in the final summer of this rebuild as centre-back Ueda went to Japan for 55,000. Winger Bruno Rodriguez headed to Saudi Arabia in a £1.4 million move, and last season's top scorer Martin Tavares headed to Saudi Arabia in a £12 million move. Marco Ribeiro and Bruno Lourenço went out on loan until the end of the season, so it was now time to strengthen my squad. And 4 players came into the club after their contracts had run down, with Paulo Bernardo, left-back Franz Kratzig, centre-back Sazonov, and goalkeeper Carlos Moreno all joining on free deals. Next in through the door was striker Tavares' replacement as Preslav Borakov joined from Bulgaria in a £1.7 million move. And the biggest money I spent this summer was £3.5 million on Swiss centre-back Marco Birch, who joined from Polish side Legia Warsaw. My transfer business wasn't quite done there though, as Lucas Roman once again joined on loan from Barcelona, and he was joined in on loan by Brazilian right-back Fabrizio and central midfielder Armani Romeo, who joined from Porto on loan until the end of the season. With my summer business complete and my tactic changed with the Champions League campaign in mind, I was now ready to simulate this final season and hopefully finish this rebuild on a high. The 5th and final season got off to a disappointing start as we lost the Super Taca final 4-3 after extra time to last season's champions Benfica. The Boavista board backed me in the January transfer window, and I was able to bring in midfielder Eamon Kari on loan until the end of the season from Manchester City, and he was closely followed in the door by Brazilian striker Yuri Alberto, who joined from Corinthians after his contract had ran down. But we were not able to split the big 3 of Portugal this season, as we finished the season in 4th place on 67 points, meaning we would qualify for next season's Europa League. And it was disappointment in the Allianz Cup once again, as we were knocked out in the 3rd phase, finishing 2nd to Braga. This 5th and final season saw us enter the Champions League, so how did my Boavista side get on? Well, a 2-1 home win and a 2-1 away win against Dutch side AZ Alkmaar in the 3rd qualifying round meant that we would face a playoff game before we had made it into the league phase of the Champions League. And the first leg couldn't have gone any better, as we beat Fenerbahce away in Turkey 4-2 to take us into the home tie, which despite losing on the night 3-2, we had still made it into the league phase with a 6-5 aggregate score. We faced some real European giants in the league phase, and losses to Napoli, Liverpool and Monaco, draws away at Roma, at home to Manchester United and at home to Young Boys, and wins over Shakhtar and Red Bull Salzburg away from home meant that despite giving it our best shot in the Champions League, we were knocked out of the league phase on goal difference. You're probably wondering, what about the Taca de Portugal? So let's take a look what happened in season number 5. Remember, we were trying to retain the Taca de Portugal, which we had won last season, and a 3-2 extra time win over Casapia in the 3rd round wasn't the most convincing of starts, but it was more like it in the 4th round as we dispatched Barreirense 3-0 away from home. This saw us head into the 5th round, where we easily beat fellow Liga Portugal side Vizela 3-1 at home. This saw us drawn at home to Nacional, and a 3-0 win sent us into the semi-final, where we faced second division side Académico de Viseu, and after a 9-3 aggregate scoreline, we were heading into the Taça de Portugal final for the second season in a row, where we would face Lisbon Giants Benfica, who had a certain Rooney Bargi on the right side of midfield. But my players weren't intimidated, and we took the lead on the stroke of half-time, a lead we held until the 89th minute when a Todibo header broke our hearts. This sent the game into a penalty shootout, and after Birch scored, it was left to Frabotta to score for Benfica, but Gonçalves saved to ensure that we retained the Taça de Portugal, and it was coming back to Boavista once again. So it had been another great season from this squad, and 6 players got into double figures over the course of the season, with Yuri Alberto hitting 10 in 17 games, Winger Moraes hitting 12, Bozinac and Roman hitting 14 each, Soa hitting 16, and Borikov top scorer with 26. Lucas Roman led the assist chart with a massive 25 across the course of the season. The aim of this rebuild was to try and bring some success back to Boavista and split the big 3 in Portugal. Despite only managing this once in the 5 years, in season number 4, we had not finished lower than 5th in the table and had a Super Taça and 2 Taça de Portugals to our name. The club's bank balance was now looking really healthy, and I was leaving Boavista in a much better place than they were in season number 1 when I took over. So everybody, that brings this Boavista rebuild to a close. I do hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a challenge managing in the Portuguese leagues, but it's been a fun one. Remember, if you're watching and you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing that. Hit that like button, and I'll see you all in the next one.